Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the live Google Hangout for Chiropractic Thought Leaders. This is September's live Hangout for 2014, and we are super excited to have you on the call tonight. Hundreds of chiropractors from literally across the world are on tonight, just like we are every month for our live Google Hangout. And I will just want to reiterate before we get started with the Hangout that we want you to communicate with us. We want you to ask questions. We want you to post. And no matter where you're viewing from, whether it's our live events page, you'll find a Facebook comment under that, or you could be watching live from our Facebook page. We have a 22 social link that you can watch right off of Facebook. Definitely comment, definitely post questions, and I'm going to make sure that your questions get answered. You could also be watching from your very own VIP app right on your desktop computer, and in that case there will be an email symbol in your top corner of your app, and when you press that button you'll be able to ask any question, and then we will be able to answer it through email. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Chris Zano, and he will kick it off.
All right, hello everybody, it's Dr. Zano. Thanks so much for being on our Hangout tonight. Tonight we have a great Google Hangout with one of my thought leaders, Dr. Brian Capra. Now go over where I met Dr. Brian. You know, years ago I had known Dr. Brian when it was called Billing Precision at that point, and I had paper travel cards. That's all I used, even when we hit 2,000 a week. So we had all these paper travel cards. I had 2 staff pulling travel cards for each and every single patient, and it started getting, you know, to be a mess. And and we didn't know who showed up as far as patients wise. So unless what happened was at the end of the week, all the patients that were all the cards that were still left in the bin. That's how we knew these were the people that didn't make their appointments. So then my staff had to take all those travel cards, stacks of them, and just call all these people, and it really became a mess. So I had a revolving door. So I saw a lot of volume, but we just were not retaining people, and it got to the point where it just got pretty. It was just there was no way I could improve on a paper travel card system at that point. And then I contacted Brian, Dr. Brian, and he told me about Genesis. And he explained everything, and I saw, okay, well, this is something where we could really, benefit. It saves me. It literally saved me 2 staff. But now my fear was, how are we going to get the database of thousands of patients into this computer and then be able to have it run? It just sounded like a nightmare. And he told me some very efficient things to do, and we got things done. And they actually came to Houston, Texas, installed the Genesis in my office, and over a weekend we made the switch. So if I can make the switch, you can do it. And we've been running 100 miles an hour ever since, and it's really been great, and patients love it. And so the call for this, so the reason why, well, how is Dr. Brian a thought leader for me, or how is even Genesis a thought leader? So I like to say Genesis is like the AI thought leader in my office, because this is a system that allows me to it teaches me things. It lets me know things. It's all, programmable, where it's letting myself and my staff know things that we never would have known. So it really is a tremendous thought leader and a helper in my office, not only for myself, but for my patients and for the entire staff. But what's even more important is that you have to understand that this is just not something that someone scans and we could get to see some of their listings of their file. There's a tremendous story behind it. There's a reason behind it. There's something much bigger than maybe you have ever thought of or even have known when you think about it. And so to show you that, I looked at I looked at a couple other systems out there that seem to be similar, but it's almost kind of like the iceberg. The icebergs may have looked somewhat similar, but when you really get underneath the water, when you see what Genesis was about, the story behind it, what it really, really does in your practice and for the people, it blew everything else out of the water for me, and that's why I chose it. And that's just what I do. I mean, I do my research, and what I feel is the best for myself and my patients, I go with. And not only, and you can see it, when I go with something, I'm all in, and if I love something, I'm the biggest promoter of it as well. And so that's why Dr. Capra is here. So Dr. Capra, I would just want you to just kind of start off before everything, and why you had a passion to do so. And what this has done in your life, and what was your vision for doctors of chiropractic and people all over the world with Genesis?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for the kind words. I appreciate it, and I appreciate we've been working together a long time now, known
Yeah.
each other a long time, so I appreciate you and all that you're doing, continue to do, and I'm sure we'll do even bigger things in the future. So I'm excited to be here, and I think one of the cool things about it is when you meet people that have a huge passion and purpose in their life, it's kind of like we're just doing this, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, there's Chiro thought leaders and there's Genesis, but we've known each other a long time. But as far as Genesis goes, for me and how it came about, the story, like if you were to told me when I was in chiropractic school that one day I would have one of the biggest chiropractic software technologies or the biggest billing service in the industry, I would be like, there's no way I don't want any part of that, you know? Just like probably you wouldn't have wanted that and still don't want that, but you know, life has a way of showing you what your purpose is. And the way that happened for me was I came from a similar kind of background as you did, Chris, where came up through a coaching group, a high volume coaching group. I interned in a high volume practice, 1,500 a week. You know, so I learned those types of systems. I learned their efficiencies, and I've definitely learned a lot of their inefficiencies. And since then, I've talked to chiropractors all over the world now. I mean, I see all different types of offices. So it doesn't really matter what type of office. It could be, you know, a volume type of thing. Some want a high volume. Some want a specific technique. Some want personal injury practices. But it didn't really matter. Now that I've seen it all, I really appreciate and realize more and more every day that what I was called to do was to build this system. And the way the whole thing started, though, as a chiropractor and building that volume type of practice, you know, I was basically in practice doing my thing, converting patients, doing a doctor's report, and doing my thing. And then one day, I just had a patient, this guy Chris. He comes in, and he's like your traditional chiropractic patient that comes in with low back pain, thinking that's all there is to chiropractic care. So comes to the doctor's report, gets under care. First re-exam. This guy was on 12 Advil a day. He was a roofer. He put, you know, roofs on houses. Go 12 Advil a day. First re-exam, gone. Pain's gone. Off all the Advil. Awesome. So, you know, still under care, getting his family checked and all this stuff. And then one day he walks into the office and he's just like, he comes up to me and says, "Can I speak to you in private?" Of course, you know, so no problem. I have him go into one of the exam rooms, adjust a couple patients, go in there. So I was just like, "Hey, what's going on?" I could see he was a little off, but I said, "What's going on?" Not thinking much, and he said, I need to talk to you. I don't know where else to turn. I want, the words he used were, "I think I want to kill myself." And so I was actually relatively young in practice, only a couple of years, and I was like, so I still remembered what they taught you in clinic, which was what do you ask somebody when they tell you they want to kill themselves, and that, which shocked me when they told me this, but you ask them how they're going to do it, because you want to know how serious they are about it. If they haven't thought this through, they're going to tell you what they've thought. So I said, it came to me, and I said, "Chris, what do you, oh my God, how are you going to do this?" And he said, "Well, the shed in my backyard, that's where I keep my guns. And when my wife and my children are asleep, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to shoot myself." So obviously he was serious about this. And I said, oh. So now I'm like scared. You know, you don't ever expect as a student that you're actually going to get somebody to say that to you as a patient. So I said, "Well, what's changed in your life?" My first thought after that was this guy started doing drugs. So I said, "Did you start doing drugs? Are you taking something?" And he actually said, "No, actually, I stopped taking all the drugs I was on." And I said, "Well, what were you doing?" He said, "Well, every night I would come home and I would drink 4 beers, sometimes 6 beers. I was smoking marijuana. I was doing some recreational drugs on the weekend." I said, "You stopped doing all those drugs, and the Advil obviously were gone." I said, and he said, "Well, and I also, so I said, you quit all that stuff?" I said, "Yeah." "Cold turkey?" "Yes." And I said, "Okay." And he said, "But I also started exercising and I started eating healthier. I stopped smoking." And I said, "And you did all of this cold turkey?" And he said, "Yes." So I said, "Okay, well, you know, not that I would ever tell you not to do what you did, but your body is probably trying to come to some homeostasis. I mean, your body was used to having all these chemicals pumped into it for however many years it was, and now you've just gone cold turkey. And while I'm still concerned, because the guy was suicidal, I mean, I was still very concerned, and we referred him to get some help, to talk to somebody. I said, but why would you do all of that, Chris? I said, why would you do all that? And his answer was, well, ever since the doctor's report, the workshop, I realized that this was not about my spine. This was about much more than my spine. This was about my health and the function of the body and my overall health. But, you know, he also said it was not only about how I function and my health, but I realized if I wanted to be the best I could be, talk about potential, which is something I always talked about. If I wanted to be the best father I could be, the best husband I could be, I couldn't do it and have all that stuff in my body. And he said to me, I was already affecting my relationship with my wife, obviously, right? But also, he said, my children. I know I'm not being a good father. I know I'm coming home. I'm not present. I'm going to drink right away. It's affecting them. Their interactions with other people. They're not getting the attention they need. It's affecting their grades. It's going to affect their whole future. And I can't be the best father I can be, and that's going to affect them. So the crazy part about this for me was that, you know, you go through chiropractic school and you come out and you think the adjustment is what blows people's minds, and it's going to be about some magical adjustment that gets some miracle, which a lot of, you know, obviously that happens. But I realized that what it was much more about, what really changes people's lives, is the philosophy, the principles. And so Chris went through this extreme change in an instant because of not because of any adjustment. At the doctor's report, he may have gotten one adjustment. I don't even remember at this point. He may have gotten one adjustment, but the principle is what changed his life. And he understood that the principle not only changed his life, but it changed how he was living, the fundamental core values that he was living on, the principles that he was living, was going to affect his children's future. So he understood, just like you say it all the time, Chris, is that this changed history. Like his decision on that day to go either stay on drugs or not stay or get off of drugs was going to change history one way or the other. And so he understood and he got it, and that's why he did what he did, and that's why he came in and was unfortunately was thinking about committing suicide. So we did get him help and we referred him out. And so sure enough, you're going through your practice and you're adjusting patients and you're doing more doctor's reports and you're converting more patients and you're doing your marketing and you know, your staff, like you said, with paper and travel cards and all this other stuff. So, you know, one day, this is a very common feeling I hear doctors tell me about, that one of the thoughts that went into building Genesis that we wanted to totally remove is you never really leave your practice at the office. You go home and you're constantly thinking of all the processes that need to happen, whether it's calling no-shows or scheduling, making sure the care plans are up to date, or checking the financials on all the charts, or all these things. And then you remember, I haven't checked that in a while, and you go back to the office. You're constantly thinking. The other thing you constantly think about is a patient, you know, or patients. And what happens all the time is you're at the gym, you're shopping, you're with your family on the weekend, a time where you shouldn't be thinking about the office, and somebody pops in your mind where you haven't seen them in a while. And you guys are on the phone. I'm sure that's happened to you. I mean, it happened to me. So unfortunately for me, what happened was one morning I woke up, and I still wake up with this feeling every single day. It's not gone since. But I woke up and I realized I hadn't seen Chris in a while. And so I went, you know, and I found out that he had actually committed suicide. So the feeling that it's an awful feeling, first of all, but the first thing I think most people would do, chiropractors would do when they find something like that out, is go to your office and find out when the last time you saw that patient was. And when I went to the office, sure enough, I went to his chart, and what did I see? I saw missed visits, no-shows. He left the office without future appointments and then just came back randomly, just by luck. I don't know what the word is. I mean, you have patients that are coming into your office just because on their own. His care plan was a mess. His financials were a mess. It was as if we tried to screw this patient relationship up. And for me, with knowing and and looking at somebody in the eye, that this is a guy, who understood chiropractic to the it changes history level. That you don't just get that and then leave the office and never come back, if you understand it, right? So one thing I realized is that patients forget. It doesn't matter what level they get it on, they forget it, because everything outside of your office is the opposite of that. Ads in papers, commercials, whatever it is, drug commercials. I was listening to the radio on the way here, and they're like, hey, get a vaccine, give a vaccine, get a vaccine. They're talking about referrals for vaccines at Walgreens and how this is like health now. And CVS is now CVS Health. They changed their marketing to now it's CVS Health because they took cigarettes out. Now it's CVS Health, but the back of the CVS is full of drugs. So one thing I realized is that it doesn't matter the level that a patient understands it. At any point in care, they forget it. And they don't tell you they're forgetting it while they are forgetting it. What happens is they show you they're forgetting it, right? So a no-show patient, Chris, who understands this changes history, doesn't leave your office without a future appointment and not urgently reschedule it himself, right? He doesn't have to miss a visit and not call you and say, hey, I'm sorry I have to miss a visit. Let me reschedule that. I want to make sure I make my visit. Because this thing changes history, right? By the way, they don't do that. So I had this problem in my mind going, it was like, what happens to people? Why do they forget, and how do we catch that they're forgetting it? It's just a matter of fact, they forget. Think of it this way: patient that signs up for chemotherapy, right? We don't subscribe to that, but patients do. They get cancer, they go to chemotherapy. They don't miss, if they're going to miss a chemotherapy visit just because something drastic happens, their car explodes. They don't miss the visit and not call the center and say, I'm so sorry, my car just exploded, I have to reschedule that. What's the next time? What's the next available appointment that I can get in there and make that up? They do that, right? They don't wait for you to call. They don't wait for this chemo place to call them. They don't walk in chemo and walk out of chemo without their next appointment and wait for you to call them. They don't get to the end of their chemotherapy treatment, and if the doctors didn't tell them what their test results were and what they were going to do next, they wouldn't just sit there and say, well, I guess it's not important. They would urgently say, hey, what the heck is going on here? You guys didn't tell me what's next, right? So the thing is, patients sign up and get it, and they understand it to the highest. They refer their families. They do it. They do things like stop all of their drugs, start eating healthy, and to be a better spouse and a better parent. They do that stuff because they understand the principle. And the guy was off, his back pain gone, whatever level you wanted Chris to understand it, he understood it, and all of a sudden he started showing the signs. And on top of it, we screwed it up too, right? We didn't follow through. The problem, what it came down to software. So I went and got. So what would you do? I went and got other software, and because I knew paper wasn't cutting it, and so I'm like, I have to get some better software or some software. So I got a software program. It's one of the very well-known ones out on the market right now. It's not a bad software. It's just fundamentally built in the wrong way. It's not going to help save lives like that. So, but I got it, and it was better. It has certain automations. Patients check in. It pops up warnings with no-shows and all that stuff. That's better. But the problem with it is it's ironically is that it's reactive. And our patients come into our clinics or offices or whatever you call it, and fundamentally the number one thing that they do differently is that everything in healthcare is reactive. It's never proactive. they look at their health as if when I get symptoms, that's when I do something, not optimizing the function and optimizing the potential of their health. They don't look at it that way, and they don't look at a lot of things that way because the whole world is built in reverse. It's all, whether it's your finances or any other thing. It's always chiropractors see things from the opposite side through chiropractic colored glasses. They see it from well, let's get to the cause of the problem, let's correct the cause, let's restore function, and let's get this thing working again. But patients don't, and ironically, people that build software also don't do that. They think about, how do I sell software, and they think about what features it needs to have, like scheduling and documentation and check-ins and pop-ups and touchscreens and iPads and all this stuff, which are all cool. They're all cool features. But what's going to make the difference is not features. Like, everything has features, right? It's kind of like the iPhone. There's lots of phones with features similar to it, but there's not a lot of things. Well, today they're kind of all catching up to each other. But when the thing came out, when Steve Jobs introduced the iPhone, what he said, actually, when he introduced the iPod, he said, what this represents is much more important than what it actually is. So it was a really interesting statement. I watched the movie with Steve Jobs. He said he's made, like, the whole introduction of the iPod was like a minute, like 5 minutes maybe. He's like, what this is way more important than what this represents. He already had plans for the iPhone and the iPad. He already knew it. He had prototypes already when he introduced the first iPod. And he said, what it represents is way more important than what this thing is. And then what he said was, it's a music playing device. It's 1,000 songs in your pocket. No big deal. It was revolutionary in itself, but it was not what he already knew was going to happen, because he knew it was going to give birth to, this thing. My iPhone 6 is, in back order, but it's on the way. And I paid $1,000 for the thing, right? It's crazy. You couldn't. So what it represented, though, for him was it was going to revolutionize the way you listen to music, take pictures, take video, share your lives with other people, monitor your health, you name it, your banking, everything. The way you did everything was going to change. And that's what he knew when he introduced the iPod. And today, you could not pay me a freaking $1,000 to pick up a Walkman. I would never do it. You couldn't pay me $1,000. Or get a separate camera. You couldn't pay me $5,000 to get separate devices. I would never, ever do it, right? But what he understood, it was going to change the way people interacted, and that was what was more important. So when it came to software, I realized that people had reverse thinking. Technologies, even though when I got one even more, I realized that what they were doing were building systems with reports. And reports were like a no-show report, a no-future appointment report. If you were doing insurance billing, you had reports where all your claims were, your aging reports. And you had to go find your claims and follow up on claims. You had to submit claims manually and all this stuff. And so what I realized is, the problem with this is, even though it's better than what I had before, I still have the days where I wake up thinking about patients that are gone. And I still have to go to the office, and I realize that the problem with that particular patient was no-shows. So then I focus on I say to my staff, we got to do better with no-shows. So we look at the no-shows. They focus on no-shows for a while. Right? And then no-shows get better, but no future appointments suffer, and care plans suffer, and everything suffers going on. Right? And so what happens for me is, when I looked at that, I'm like, that's a really reactive way to practice, especially with the way technology was evolving. Why are we having a system that we have to wait to go and find things that are wrong in reports? Why isn't it telling us things are wrong in real time? Why do I have to go to 10 different reports to find out where my patient relationships are at risk? I don't have time. You know what? I'm a chiropractor. I'm adjusting, and I'm managing a business. That's really what we do. We're business managers and we're employees at the same time. And it's hard enough to manage a business as a CEO level person, let alone try to be one of the employees and manage at the same time. Just constantly fight this battle. It's kind of like trying to be the conductor of an orchestra and be the violin player at the same time. You can't do both at the same time. Not efficiently, you can. You can run back and forth, and it would sound like garbage. right? So, but we do this all the time in our practices, and what suffers is what is history. You know, what suffers is the efficiency that patients understand chiropractic care. What suffers is the referrals that they would have made. You know, how you suffer is you're always stressed out of your mind because you're 1,000 different tasks and trying to remember ones that aren't happening. Your staff suffers because when you do remember a patient and you tell them to go focus on no-shows, they're sitting in the office scared about the next thing you're going to freak out about, right? And then I hear this all the time. Well, you know, it's everything always changes. It's one thing this week, it's another thing next week, and we're always all over the place, and they're stressed out. And at the end of the day, they really don't know what to focus on, and that's why there's such high staff turnover in chiropractic. What they do, you know, most people want to go to a job and know exactly what they're supposed to do it, feel good about it, and then go home. You know, they may or may not be on your mission, but fundamentally, on the basic level, that's what they want to do. And that's why they're always stressed out, and that's why they leave. So what I realized was that the way technology was working was reactive. It was waiting for people to find work and then go do the work. So if you're looking at the billing process and why we started with billing, was not because I wanted to build a billing company. It's the last thing I wanted to do. I'm a chiropractor. If you could have picked one of the things that we do that I least wanted to do, it was to build a billing service. But I realized that it was actually the first thing that people neglected, and it was one of the biggest things that chiropractors wanted to get rid of and off their plate. So what we did was I said, look, if you look at the billing process, I met a couple of gentlemen. One was a former CIO on Wall Street. Another, his son was a computer science degree from Princeton University, and they taught me some things that are not taught in chiropractic at all, both from a business management standpoint and a technology standpoint. We looked at technology that was being used to run Wall Street hedge funds, and actually technology to manage huge management levels. So, in other words, for IT in one of the top 5 financial firms on Wall Street in Manhattan. Meaning there was thousands of resources, people, employees reporting to people and levels of management. And how do you do that efficiently? And how do Wall Street transactions happen efficiently so that everybody is paid at the end of the day? Because you know, when it comes to insurance billing, we think that insurance companies have to know all this information to pay us, and they actually technically don't need it at all. The system is another hangout we can do. The system is rigged basically to make it seem like it's more complicated, but technologically there's no reason today, in today's day and age, that when you do any visit in your office that the insurance company shouldn't pay you before the patient leaves the door. There's no reason. And Wall Street, that happens every single day. Way more complex transactions happens every single day. So when it came to billing, I realized the fundamental problem with billing was that billers in offices or outside when you're outsourcing your billing, the fundamental problem was that your biller had to go and find the claims, go to aging reports, find the claim, and then follow up on the claim. Call the insurance company, make sure that you're getting paid. And that's just silly, because technology today you don't need people to go find claims. You mentioned artificial intelligence, Chris. That is basically intelligence built into technology that is basically millions and millions and millions of rules, things that you can teach a technology what to look for in reports. And if it finds something that needs attention, like a claim that needs to be followed up on because it's denied or underpaid or what have you, it takes the claim and gives it to the biller. Okay? So once you're able to do that, once you're able to have a technology find work and give it to the billers, for example, from my perspective, we do over 300,000 claims every month we follow up on for doctors. 300,000 claims. And for me, as the owner of the company, I have literally one number that I look at every single day, and I know whether or not that my billing company, that portion of my business, is functioning at 100% or not. Am I following up on every single claim that needs to be followed up on today or not? And so the reason that happens is because since those claims get pulled from the reports by the technology and put on billers' computer screens, And I can aggregate that number to see across, I have hundreds of billers, but I don't have time to look at hundreds of billers' work. I have time to look at one number, right? So I look at one number, is it how many claims need to be followed up on today, and then is it 0 by the end of the day? And if it's 0, I know we followed up on every single claim. It's really that simple. Now there's quality assurance and there's all kinds of reports are good for retrospective analysis and looking at how efficient we are and can we improve and all that stuff. And how do we build better rules into the system to find more claims or more situations where the insurance companies are trying to beat us. But right now I have one number I need to look at. Okay, so the technology allows me to do that. And since it's on the web and it's in one centralized database, you have hundreds of providers submitting claims through one centralized database that we build the intelligence into, and that database finds the claims for across all those practices constantly, right? So that centralized database now acts as a shared system that continues to improve and get smarter over time. So what does this have to do with Chris, that patient? It has everything to do with Chris. It has everything to do with why systems and other technologies most often are compared based on features rather than how it actually functions. So with the billing system, we solved a huge problem. Doctors can outsource their billing, and they can see that number just like I can see that number. Only then when they see that number, it's for their office. When I see the number, it's for all of our offices. I can drill down if I want, but I see the whole the one number. What we call it is single metric management. One number, metric one meaning number. And so when I looked at the other side of the equation, the other side of the business of managing patient relationships, I realized that these things like reports for no-shows and no future appointments and expired care plans, and those are just reports just like billing reports are. And if I'm waiting for people to go find the work before they can do it, first of all, they're wasting a ton of time finding work before they can do it. Second of all, I have no idea when I walk into my office or out of my office. When I walk in the office in the morning, I don't know across no-shows, across no future appointments, across expired care plans, across claims that need to be followed up on, across notes that have to be signed for compliance. I have no idea how many outstanding tasks there are to manage every single patient relationship at 100%. I have no idea. I don't know when I walk in the office, and when I walk out of the office, I don't know if it was done or not. And for me, that was, not knowing that just wasn't acceptable anymore. Not knowing, knowing that there's technology that can help you do something like that. I mean, why would you try to practice with this old tech report style technology when there's technology that can literally summarize the risk to your patients' lives with one number? Why would you ever want to do that? If you go to amazing businesses that have provide amazing experiences, like Ritz-Carlton. Do you know the Ritz-Carlton literally knows exactly how many steps it takes to make a bed at the Ritz-Carlton? And every employee that makes beds at the Ritz-Carlton has a checklist in their pocket, and they know exactly. They go through the checklist to make sure they've made the bed perfectly, and that goes throughout the whole hotel. Every person has their job, and it's broken down to the task, and they know exactly how much they're supposed to do. So for a chiropractic office, we're not talking about making beds or filling rooms at a hotel. We're talking about saving people's lives and changing history, and we don't quantify the number of things that have to happen every single day to make sure we're doing everything we can to save those people's lives. It's just all in reports. Reports that when you're practicing, you don't have time to look at. There's no way you have that time. I promise. And I know this because I didn't know, and I know this because every time I ask a doctor, okay, no problem. How many no-shows did you have that aren't followed up on, that have not been rescheduled? They never know that number, let alone the other 10 reports. And you can't. It's impossible. It's mentally, physically impossible to memory manage everything that's supposed to happen. So what we did is we took the technology that we built for billing and the methodology, really, and we took it and we applied it to patient relationship management. And so the way Genesis is fundamentally different is it's proactive. It finds the work that you need to do, and not only does it find it, but it delegates it to the right people. It gives the work to the person that needs to get it done. So while your front desk is sitting there, they have a screen with all their tasks popping up in real time. So their no-shows pop up to the front desk, right? And it's the patient. They can click on it and call right there and close that task when it's rescheduled. If they don't reschedule it, they push that task to the next time they're going to call, and it pops back up on their screen. So they're constantly managing their work, and they love this. At first, some of them are like, well, I don't want to do all that work. But the reality is, at the end of the day, they realize that all I have to do is all of these tasks in real time. This is what I wanted. I want to know exactly what I'm supposed to do. I don't want the doctor to be freaking out about this and that. We have an agreement that if I do all of this work by the end of the day every single day, if I just complete my list and manage that list, I've done everything I can do to help this doctor reach their dream practice. And everybody in the office has that same work ethic or process. They go to their screen where all their tasks are, and the doctor has their own tasks. The doctor has to do x-ray reports, and the doctor has to do their notes and their billing and whatever. So they have to do all of this stuff too. So everybody in the team knows that everybody's getting their list, and there's a beautiful little report, and it's really cool because it's called the Ticket Console Manager. And it has everybody's name listed, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like however many staff you have, and next to their name is the number of tasks that they have outstanding right now that has to be completed before the end of the day, and then there's a total number at the bottom. And if you click on anybody's tasks on the next, right next to that, it shows you their actual tasks. So it's totally transparent, which some people get scared about. Everybody can see what everybody else has to do. The beauty of that is it's how you manage your staff is different. It changes. It's hey, I see you have a couple of tasks left. How can I help you? It helps you analyze if there's a certain type of thing that's not done by the end of the day. You already know in real time. You don't have to wait 2 months to remember to look at a report. It's in real time. Look, no shows are piling up. Do we not have enough people? Do you not know how to follow up? No future appointments, expired care plan, whatever it is. By the end of the day, you've already addressed it. Okay, so what we call that is single metric management. So the concept for me was like, hey, I don't want to be in an office anymore where I don't know exactly how much stuff I need to do every single day, and I don't want my staff to be in that position anymore. I want to know as patients are forgetting. And we know they forget. As they're forgetting, I want to see them forgetting. The no-shows, I want my staff to address no-shows as if it's life and death. The only way you do that is to bring it to them in real time, and know that number is completed by the end of the day. So I have one number now. It's called single metric management across the whole system. And the amazing thing is we were able to actually measure. Now we're on a web, right? We have hundreds of doctors using one system. I can actually measure the doctors that use it as compared to the doctors that do not use it. And I can measure the increase in retention. I can measure the increase in revenue. 60% higher revenue on average for doctors that use single metric management. 60% higher revenue. 32% higher compliance, meaning they sign all their notes, they do all their notes, they do all their billing in real time. Everything is done by the end of the day. We have the retention is something like 60% higher, right? So I can now, one thing that's huge with a system that is on the internet is that you can build this artificial intelligence, but then you can measure people who use it and don't, and to what levels different people use it. So now we're building a web-based technology that can be used for anything. Managing a business. We now provide a coach that specifically trains our offices on how to use single metric management, how to implement it, and how to get better results over time. So that's a huge value for our clients. But now we're talking with schools, some of the schools, and how we can use the technology since it's web-based and doctors are doing the technology, their documentation in that system. Now we can do research, right? Now we can say, here's the patients that have been seen in this system in hundreds of different practices. They've gotten this technique and this result, right? So now we're able to do research. We're able to do a whole lot more because of this thing, this web-based. But at the end of the day, the fundamental difference is when you're looking at software, it's not a matter of you're comparing features, because Genesis has a scheduler, it has documentation, it has billing, and it has, you can use it on the iPad, you can use it from the web, you can access it from other systems that may or may not have all those features, or someday will have those same exact features. But the thing is, look, your iPhone, when you compare your iPhone to a Walkman, it has a lot of the same features. It has a play button. It plays music. But what it represents is way different. And so what Genesis represents is a whole, the word Genesis is something new. It's a new creation. That's why I chose the name. And what we've done now is totally revolutionize the way technology is used for doctors to manage the business of managing patient relationships. And that's really, that's the story behind how it started, just honestly, by accident, if you would, but I would say by purpose and on purpose and what I was called to do. That's the story behind how it started and how I learned about these things and how we built it and why today it's night and day compared to other systems. There's just not a comparison. There's just not anymore. And we were, so I don't know. I can keep going. So I don't know how long I've just ranted for, but
no, that's good. No, that's good. So well, that's what I wanted people to see is not that what you did was some type of software like everything else. Like I really think the story behind it and the passion, the reason behind it, and the intelligence behind it, and what you guys went through, you know, it all started with that one person in mind. It's so that would never happen again. And that is the difference, and that is a huge part. Like, I mean, I use that in my office because of this. It's very important to me. You know, I'm not here to just run people in and out. You know, we want to make sure we give the patients the best quality of care, and this was the only thing that was able to allow me to do that at a certain level, at the level we're doing it. And it really could go to 5,000, 6,000 if I wanted 10,000 a week.
Absolutely.
So I just really appreciate what you do, and you know, every time we talk about it, it's like, you know, how and everybody asks me, well, what's the difference? Or I don't understand. It's like, because I know the story behind it. I really think people need to know the true story and the essence of it, and knowing that, you know, if you're looking for excellence, you know, this is something that you're not dealing with someone who just came out of school and says, listen, I don't want to practice. I want to make a computer software. This is someone who had a real life experience, and through that experience, just like the experience of me getting sick, you know, my sickness brought me into chiropractic. We're here for you. Your experience not only brought you into chiropractic, but it gave you a tool that you could be able to spread out to thousands of chiropractors, so we could really make an impact in this profession and be able to measure it as well. So I appreciate you, man. Thanks for all you've done for me.
All you guys, I appreciate. Thank you for having me here.
And so we're going to close it out with Dr. Tabor. Do it, man.
Awesome. Well, great job, Brian, and thank you for being here. And I'll just tell you, you know, we use Genesis in my office too, and just, you know, it's fast, it's easy. My big thing, I wanted to see my x-rays every time my patient came in. It makes that easy, and it's really, for, I mean, just as amazing as it gets. I'm shocked at how affordable it is as well. So if you want to get more information on Genesis, there is a link below every video that you could be watching this live event from. There's a link. Just click on that. You'll be able to opt in, and Genesis, Dr. Brian's team, will send you the information that you need. We are also going to be launching Dr. Brian Capra's thought leader videos that he did for our website, so stay tuned to your inbox and be watching for an email from us, probably coming to you tomorrow with the replay on this webinar. So thanks again, guys. Thanks for being here. For you watching, thank you for being here every month. We've been doing this since February. We have literally tens of thousands of views on these Hangouts, and so we're just going to keep bringing you some amazing info, so stay tuned. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Night.
Good night.